properties, and like we did today, we put different polygons into different groups or categories based on properties, and a lot of property names are what we just went over up here. Regular polygons, concave, convex, parallel, and then finally parallelograms. All three of these are parallelograms because they have two pairs of parallel sides, right? So they're quadrilaterals and they're also parallelograms. But my question to you, and if you recall the discussion rules that we all just talked about, listening to others and being respectful, I'd like you to talk about this question right here. Can a square be a rectangle? Can it be a rhombus? Or can it be both? And why do you think that? So make sure you're being nice, loud, and clear. Jolena?
A square could be a rectangle and a rhombus.
Why do you think so?
Because a square, if you sort of tipped it a bit sideways, it could turn into a rhombus. And if you squeezed it down a little, it could be a rectangle also.
Do any of you agree, disagree, want to add on to that? What do you think, Ben?
I would like to argue with that comment because, well, I agree with her that if you turned a square, it could be a rhombus, but I don't think you can smash a square down to make a rectangle. I mean, that's just not right.
Yeah.
But I think a rectangle could be a square.
Okay, so you think the other way around. You think maybe a rectangle could be a square.
Yeah.
Megan?
Well, with Ben's idea, I think if you're if a rectangle can be a square, technically a square could be a rectangle. And I don't think you can make a rhombus by turning the square. I think you have to stretch out maybe the sides a little bit to do that. But I think you can make a square into a rectangle by putting it down just a little bit and lightening out the sides.
What if I were to say that we couldn't change anything with these three figures? What if I said just all thinking about just their properties that they hold at this moment? Dave?
I think a square can be a rectangle because two squares go into a rectangle.
Okay. Matt?
I think that a square is kind of just a special kind of rectangle because I never said that a rectangle had to have the same really length of the sides. It never said it had to have one length, one longer, and the other pair shorter.
For a rectangle?
Yeah.
So you don't think that the way this looks, it should have to look that way?
Yeah. And it could be a rhombus. Well, it could be a rhombus because
What could? The square?
yeah, the square could be a rhombus because it never. Also, the rhombus in the rules, it never says that it has to be turned. It never says that it has to be turned or something.
Okay. Eli?
I think a square would still be a rhombus because, and you wouldn't have to turn it at all because all sides are the exact same length.
Okay.
And I think a square could be a rectangle because a rectangle has two. Oh no, a square can't be a rectangle because a rectangle has two pairs of equal sides.
Okay, so Eli just said that a square could be a rhombus because a rhombus has all four sides the same length and a square has all four sides the same length. But he doesn't think that a square could be a rectangle. So where else could we go with what he said? Alyssa?
I don't think it could be either because rectangle, I'm pretty sure, is the two pairs of different lengths, and then the square is all the same length, and then the rhombus, I'm pretty sure it's like supposed to be like that, and I don't think the square could to be like turned and be able to turn into a rhombus.
Okay, so you're looking at sort of that the figure is diagonal almost? Is that what you're focusing on?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay. So, but you don't think a square could be either?
Yeah, or rhombus. I think all the squares, all the angles are 90 degrees and the rhombus they're not.
That's a good point. Mason?
We probably all learned that a rectangle is anything with four sides, but in younger grades, they're not all even. But a square is a rectangle, and if you tilt a square a little to the side on this point, it's a rhombus.
Okay. Caitlin?
Well, if a square, if you can't like change the square, like stretch it out or squish it, then I don't think it could be a rectangle or a rhombus without like lowering it or like stretching it out.
Okay. Yeah, so continuing with that, remember what I said before. Try not to think about these figures changing whatsoever. Pretend like you can't do anything with them, but look at them exactly the way they are and with the properties that they have. Now, Eli brought up the length of the sides. What else are we missing that we haven't really talked about in relation to properties? Layla?
The angles.
Okay, so what about the angles?
Well, for the square, like there's a bunch of right angles in a square, and some of them in a rectangle and a rhombus. I don't think. Are there any right angles in a rhombus?
What do you think? What do you see?
Well, square and rhombus, they're similar, but just a rhombus is kind of tilted and a little bit more stretched out. So I don't think there could be a right angle in a rhombus.
Okay. Max?
I don't think that a rectangle could be a square.
Okay.
I'm kind of just pulling this out of nowhere, but a rectangle cannot be a square because a square, by definition, is all four sides of equal length, and a rectangle has two longer sides and two shorter sides.
This is true. Mm-hmm. Those are part of the definition. Yes. Eli?
And also, like, if you think about if you can just smash shapes and stretch them out, that would be pretty much just ruining the whole point of different types of shapes. Because, like, then you could make a circle into a square, and it would just ruin the types of shapes.
I think that's a really good point. I think that if you were able to do anything with any shape, well then what shapes would we be left with, right? So once again, try to think with just these figures in mind and how they already look, okay? Ben?
I have to go with Eli's comment again, because if you think that you can take a square and make it into a rectangle, or tilt the sides and make it into a rhombus, then you need to go back to first grade. Because like Eli said, if we could smash and mix and make squares out of Play-Doh, then there's no shapes.
Okay. Could you comment on the other properties, like the size, the length of the sides, or the types of angles that we have here?
Well, yes, rectangles and squares do have the same amount of angles, but
Amount of angles, meaning
like
measure?
they both have 90-degree angles.
Okay, okay.
And like Max said, the definition of square is all four sides are even, pretty much. And rectangle doesn't have that. A rhombus does have that. But rhombus doesn't have 90-degree angles. So I'm actually going against myself from what I said in the beginning. I don't think a square could be a rectangle or a rhombus.
Okay. Okay. Jaren?
Going back to what Max said, I thought he said that a rectangle couldn't be a square. And I have to disagree with that. When I was younger in classes, they said that a rectangle can be a square because I thought they said that a
a rectangle really is a square, just in a different, made in a different way.
Okay. I'd like you to watch when I do this. Take a few comments. Mohammed.
For the rhombus, it has all the same, but all of it is obtuse. But the square is all right angles, and they have all the same
Okay.
length.
So what are you thinking about that? What, by definition, could one be the other?
Yeah, since when you like tilt it a little bit, it would be like a rhombus.
Okay. Kieran?
I think a square is in a rectangle because all the angles of the square are 90, and in a rectangle they're all 92.
So you said they can?
Yeah,
Okay.
but with the rhombus in the square, I don't really think because the angles are different.
Okay. All right, you guys did awesome. Thank you so much. I am going to reveal